In the course of a lifetime, I'm sure that most of us along the way will have a transforming moment when we see something from a perspective that we had never seen before. And that happened to me back in 1999 when my sister Dolly, my brother-in-law Gerald, asked me to take them to Europe to visit the places where I had been during the war. But several years earlier, I met a lady by the name of Betty Thompson. I was introduced to her by her nephew, and Betty Thompson lost her first young husband on Omaha Beach on D-Day. And I had a telephone conversation with Betty before we left for Europe, and she asked whether during my stay in Normandy would I visit this cemetery and visit the grave of her fallen husband. I told her I would be honored to do so. So in the fall of the year, the three of us flew to Brussels, and then from Brussels we drove into the Ardennes, the scene of the Battle of the Bulge, toured the area. I met with wonderful Belgian friends that I have, and as I had done in several previous visits, I drove to the Henri Chapelle Cemetery in Belgium and visited there because a number of my friends and comrades are buried in that cemetery from my division. We then drove to Normandy, to the town of Bayeux, where we would stay. And in Bayeux, we visited a floral shop where I purchased a single red rose to place on the grave of Donald Weisel. I thought that would be more eloquent. We then drove to the Normandy Cemetery, which is situated on a bluff that overlooks Omaha Beach. And we were very fortunate in that we had as our guide a young lady who was very knowledgeable and very articulate. And because of the size of the cemetery, she would drive us to the gravesite in her car. And she had with her a small American flag, a small French flag, and a Polaroid camera. And then as we stood and knelt by the grave of Donald Weisel, she placed a flag on either side of that white marble cross. And then I laid that solitary rose on his grave. And all the while, she was telling us things about that cemetery. There are over 9,000 young Americans buried here. And we were shocked when at that time she said there were 38 sets of brothers buried here. There were 33 sets of brothers that were buried side by side, and that really cut me to the quick because my own dear wife had lost two brothers, one in North Africa with the 1st Division and the second one on a destroyer off of Okinawa when a twin-engine kamikaze slammed into the forward #1 gun turret. And of course, there was nothing found of him even to bury. And then, as I had done in previous visits to various cemeteries, I walked alone among those crosses. And I thought again how fortunate I have been. And I thought especially it was by the grace of God what happened to me here in Normandy. This cemetery should be my current address. And I thought how greatly God had blessed me. He blessed me with a lovely wife, 3 handsome children, 8 wonderful grandchildren. But then I multiplied 9,000 crosses times 50 years, and you come away with a staggering total of at least 450,000 unlived years represented in this one cemetery. 450,000 unlived years with all of the potential of each life and of each year. But then I wondered, why was it of all the cemeteries I had visited, especially the Henri Chapelle, why was it that it was always this Normandy cemetery that evoked such a deep emotional response within me? And then something occurred to me. You see, the cemetery at Henri Chapelle lies in a setting of almost perfect peace and tranquility. I said, even the birds seem to whisper when they fly overhead. But Normandy is different. And the difference is the waves. It is the sound of the waves. It is the unrelenting sound of those waves as they wash ashore at Omaha Beach. And I thought again of the young man whose grave we had visited. And then I thought again of my own life. I thought of the many, many, many blessings that have accrued to me over these more than 50 intervening years. And it was then that it seemed that those waves had a very powerful, a very severe, and a very personal warning to me, telling me, don't you ever, ever forget the magnitude of the sacrifice that was made by just that one young man. And then it seemed that each wave still carried with it all of the horror and all of the terror of the last few moments of that young man's life. And each wave all seemed to carry with it the sound of a bell tolling out another and another and another of his unlived years. And each succeeding wave bore the painful reminder that, unlike me, that young man would never experience the fathomless pride of fathering a precious son or daughter. And each succeeding wave had the reaffirming reminder that, unlike me, that young man will never know the blessings of old age. And unlike me, he will never have that proud experience of just holding and hugging and kissing a beloved grandson or granddaughter. But then I saw another wave, and on its crest were the scattered petals of a crushed rose, the painful remembrance of the anguish of the wounded and broken heart of that young, loving wife that will never mend. And as those waves come sweeping in toward the shore, they each gently and reverently kiss the sands of this beach. Because to me, those waves also represent the tears of a nation that is weeping for its young. And the unrelenting sound of those waves is God's eternal reminder of the enormity of the sacrifice that was paid for our freedom. And I would like to cry out to all of those young men buried beneath those white crosses, you were robbed. Indeed, you were robbed of the most sublime gift that we possess. You were robbed of your very lives. But dear young men, we too were robbed. We were robbed of you. We were robbed of your love. We were robbed of your hopes, your dreams, and your aspirations. And yes, dear young men, we were robbed of those thousands of precious sons and daughters that you never even had the privilege to father, and who would have borne the very image of your greatness. And we were robbed of those thousands upon thousands of unborn grandsons and granddaughters that you will never kiss, you will never hold, and you will never hug, and they will never know the magnitude of your sacrifice. Yes, dear young men, we were all robbed by that terrible, that insidious thief called war. But then I wondered, what more could I say to bring comfort to Betty Thompson and to my own dear wife who have suffered such terrible loss, except to repeat the words to that anthem. Oh, beautiful, for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Amen, and God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One old soldier to another. Thank you very much. Very good.